Right now, you might be feeling stuck, scrolling through cybersecurity job postings, all asking for a degree that you don't have. But here's the truth, I have helped people get into cybersecurity without one, and you can too. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 proven steps, and I'm going to unlock a pathway for you that's going to give you the exact roadmap that you need to get into cybersecurity without a degree. Hi, my name's AJ. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 9 years. On this channel, I teach all things cybersecurity for beginners, so let's get into it. First of all, then, you want to build your foundation in networking. So networking is the fundamentals of cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is ultimately about protecting networks. So you need to understand how networks work, how they're actually set up, how traffic moves from one source to a destination, things like TCP/IP, for example. You need to know these fundamental skills, even things such as the OSI model as well. So a great certification for that, and I'm sure it's one that everybody knows about, but it's the CompTIA Network Plus, and also including the labs as well to give you those more hands-on skills. I will say one thing about the CompTIA Network Plus, it does go really in-depth into networking, which can sometimes be off-putting for people trying to get into cybersecurity, because a lot of these networking concepts that you will learn in CompTIA Network Plus, you won't actually apply them or use them as a cybersecurity professional, but having that good foundation knowledge is still something that you're going to want to get. But don't let the content put you off. Just get the knowledge and then move on. So you want to see CompTIA Network Plus. So you can see here in their store, for example, the Network Plus content that you would be looking at is in here. And from the area where I mentioned the labs, so it's actually the CertMaster labs. These are hands-on practical labs that will provide you with step-by-step guidance once you've learned a lot of the content, and the content is in CertMaster Learn. I recommend doing both of these together, and then if you decide to go for the exam as well, often booking the exam can be a good way to actually prepare and make sure that you do learn the content. So you can also go for the exam as well if you want to actually get the certification under your belt. But I do think learning the knowledge is more important. But if you also want to pass the exam, go ahead and do that as well. So point 2 then, you want to build your cybersecurity fundamentals. This again is a very simple one. Just go for the CompTIA Security Plus and also the labs as well. CompTIA Security Plus is another great certification to build the fundamentals. It's good. It does miss out on a lot of the job skills that we're going to get to shortly, which is what employers are actually looking for. But the CompTIA certifications are really good to help flag your CV up with the recruiters, which is one key benefit of these certifications. Now, if you're watching this video and you do have a cybersecurity degree, I'm not saying that you've wasted your time. I think if you have got a degree already, or if you're pursuing one, then that can still be a good thing. But often what the degree will do is kind of help you build these first 2 sections here, which is your foundation in networking and in cybersecurity. But again, if you don't have that degree, this is where I recommend going instead of getting a degree. But like I said, if you've already got a degree, or if you are looking to either go down either pathway, then there's nothing wrong with getting a degree, but I actually just think this pathway is better in the modern way of learning. And as you can see in here, CompTIA Security Plus, so well-known certification. Again, same thing again, go through and get the CertMaster Learn, CertMaster Labs, and then if you decide to push towards the exam as well, then you can also buy an exam voucher. So step 3 then, this is where once you've built your foundations in cybersecurity and networking, you're going to want to pick a job role. And the reason that we tell you to pick a job role here is so that you can focus your learning directly for that job role, and don't try and learn everything in cybersecurity, because you're just going to get overwhelmed. Now, the role that we suggest and I suggest is the role of a cybersecurity analyst or a SOC analyst, threat defense analyst, maybe even threat hunting analyst. There's so many different names to a lot of these roles, which are ultimately the same type of job. But ultimately here, pick a job role. The reason that I suggest the role of a cybersecurity analyst is personally where I started, and through a lot of the people that I'm helping, they're the jobs that a lot of kind of tended to be more beginner friendly. So that's one of the main reasons that I recommend it. Like, if you don't want to go down that route, pick a different role and learn the skills related to that job role. But I recommend the blue team defensive side to go into at the moment, because I see it as the best kind of entry-level route. It's not an entry-level job, but due to the nature of the role itself, and sometimes companies will tend to hire more junior or less experienced people into these blue team defensive roles. So you want to focus on the skills here. So skills of a cybersecurity analyst. So first one, SIEM, that stands for Security Information Event Management Tool. And a security information event management tool is a tool that all cybersecurity analysts are using. If you imagine a network, on that network you will have servers, laptops, firewalls. They will send their logs to a SIEM, so Microsoft Sentinel is a very popular one, Elastic is another one. Then they will have a set of correlation rules or detection rules that are looking for malicious activity in these logs. If it detects malicious activity, it'll send an alert to you as the analyst, where it'll be up to you then to either escalate it as a possible cyber attack or then look to actually close it out, the rule and the alert, as a false positive, and it means that the rule fired incorrectly and the traffic or the alert is not malicious, and then you'd look to improve the rule. So getting experience in SIEM is hugely important. So a new part of cybersecurity that has been introduced in kind of the last year, 2 years, maybe a little bit more, is the introduction of AI and automation. So AI is everywhere these days and is changing the cybersecurity industry. This is actually one area that if you can focus on and become more of an expert in, it's really going to help you stand out when you're going for these more blue team style roles. So in terms of automation then, if we go back to the SIEM example, there's tools like Tines. So these are workflow automation tools that are being used to speed up certain processes in a security operations center. So if you imagine our SIEM example where you'd have the alerts, they could then be sent to Tines. Tines would provide some summary analysis on that before it's sent to the analyst, for example. There could even be workflows then that could actually begin to make suggestions to improve the rule and actually improve certain processes. So ultimately, these automation tasks are going to be brought in to security operations centers, and the things that I'm currently working on in the companies that I'm working for. And there's not many companies that are out there that are currently doing this yet, but this is the way where companies are moving towards. And another example here then is of automating repetitive SOC analyst tasks. So Tines have partnered with Elastic SIEM, where they allow you to build out these workflow automations here. So you can see it's creating a case, sending an alert to Slack, and then doing the IP reputation lookup, checking if it's malicious. A lot of this would traditionally be done by the analysts themselves, more manually, and then it's actually processing the block on a firewall and getting additional block details as well. So these are the kind of things that where the industry is moving towards. So learning these things can really help you stand out. So tools like Tines, think of workflow automation tools and try to think about how to integrate these into a security operations center. So next up then, you want to learn about incident response, and a great framework for that is the SANS incident response plan. So what this details then is the steps that you need to take to prepare for an incident, but then once an incident occurs, these are the steps that you need to take to identify it all the way to recovering from it and actually performing lessons learned so you can understand how to improve the cybersecurity posture and cybersecurity strategy for next time. So this is a great plan and framework that all companies are using, and it's going to help you be much more effective when it comes to responding to incidents in a cybersecurity environment. So definitely have a look into the SANS incident response plan. So it's also important that you look into cloud attack and defense. A lot of companies now are moving into the cloud, so you need to start to understand how attackers are attacking the cloud and how to actually defend against it. A great framework for that is the micro attack framework. They've got this cloud matrix, and what this is detailing is the steps that an attacker will try to take when they're trying to compromise a cloud platform, and then within those steps then it'll give particular techniques. So let's say that you get asked in an interview about a persistence technique in the cloud. You could go in here, and you're not expected to remember all of these, but if you start to build a step-by-step understanding of the actions that an attacker will take, it's going to help you be a much better blue team defender. And what this shows here is giving you the summary of the technique itself, some real world examples, and this is what companies are wanting from you, how to mitigate and detect these particular attacks and techniques in a cloud environment. These are the kind of things that they're going to be wanting to see that you understand. And the next part is very similar to that as well, is attack types and defense techniques. So your more general types of attacks, your phishing, your malware and things like that, network-based attacks, for example. And again, this is something that you can use the micro attack framework for. You can see it's broken down into different operating systems. So again, start to understand what attackers are doing on these different operating systems, how they're attempting to compromise them, what techniques techniques they're using, and you can read through these different techniques here. Like I mentioned, you're not expected to understand every single one of these. You start to understand the most common ones. Like you can see your phishing here, for example, your brute force attacks. There's many different types of techniques in here that you can start to understand, and it's going to help you answer a lot of the questions that will come up in interviews about how to think like an attacker, because they'll put you in different scenarios, for example, and they'll say, imagine that an attacker has broken into the network and a brute force alert has triggered. What actions will you take next? These are the kind of things that they're going to be expecting from you in interviews and in real life scenarios when you're working. So next up, detection rules. So when you start to look into SIEM, you'll start to learn more about the detection rules. So we go back to the SIEM example. I mentioned correlation rules, detection rules. They're the same thing. Ultimately, these are the rules that are looking for malicious activity in these logs. Here's something like Elastic. They've got some great information about detection rules. So they've got a lot of pre-built rules as well. So as you can see here, these are different rules then that have been built by Elastic in an attempt to detect malicious activity. So when you start setting up your own SIEM, just go in and have a look at these detection rules, because it's going to help you understand how they're actually detecting the malicious activity in the logs themselves. And they've also got this pre-built rule reference. So in here is a list of all the rules that they've pre-built. Just come in here, start to understand the rule itself. So it's giving you information about the rule. It's helping you understand what this is actually all about. It's actually helping you understand how to actually triage and perform your analysis. So again, these are the kind of things that are going to help you in interviews, and also things like possible investigation steps. A lot of this is great information to help you understand how to actually be a cybersecurity analyst, how to be more of a blue team cybersecurity professional. And they've also got the rule query as well. So understanding SIEM queries is hugely important. Even how to write those queries is a great skill as well. So come into here, have a look at this, because this is really going to help you out, especially in interviews and in real world scenarios where you're expected to create queries, run queries to detect malicious activity. So next up, threat intelligence. So threat intelligence is using open source information to understand the latest attack techniques. And what it's saying here then, the process of collecting and analyzing information about existing or emerging cyber threats to understand attacker motives, behaviors, and targets. So the main thing that we're trying to do here is gather intelligence and information about the latest techniques that attackers are doing, so that we can understand how to protect the company. So this threat intelligence will inform a lot of the SIEM detection rules that we built, for example, and what we want to do is try to stay ahead as much as we can, and the best way to do that is to collect as much threat intelligence as possible. Start to look into different threat intelligence tools. A very big one is MISP, which is an open source threat intelligence platform. You can come in here, start to understand this tool. Ultimately, what this tool is doing is just gathering as much threat intelligence as it can, and then companies will come in here and see which threat intelligence relates to them. So usually companies will come in here, let's say they're based in the finance sector, they'll come in here, start to understand the latest attacker techniques that are in the finance sector, and then use that information to build new SIEM detections, perform threat hunting, to ultimately try to protect the company and the company's network from these new threats and from these new attacker techniques. And then that leads us into threat hunting. So this is actually where the more proactive searching of threats across a network. Ultimately, what you're doing though is just gathering the threat intelligence, and often it can be simple as building new detection rules in a SIEM and then searching across a customer's network using that new query to look for the new indicators that you've discovered in the threat intelligence. So that's it from a very basic level. If you want to look more into it, Splunk, so another great SIEM that is used by a lot of companies as well, have this particular framework which is called the Peak Threat Hunting Framework. I recommend that you come in here and have a read through this to get a better understanding of threat hunting, because again, these are the kind of things, these are the more advanced and senior level tasks that will be performed in a company. So if you can start to understand this, then you're going to be able to put yourself much further ahead than a lot of other people who are trying to come into the industry. But again, the majority of what you're going to be looking at here is using the threat intelligence, converting that into possible SIEM queries, SIEM detections, and then using those queries within the SIEM to search across the log data to try to understand if those latest threats have been discovered in the network. So next up then, analysis tooling. So this is just understanding the main tools out there that cybersecurity analysts are using. The focus is going to be on SIEM, so make sure you're focusing on that one. A lot of this will also be covered in CompTIA Plus, things like your firewalls, your endpoint detection systems, network intrusion detection systems. Ultimately here, you want to understand what tools placed on a network to help cybersecurity professionals to detect malicious activity. When you start to understand these, you're going to understand where the logs are then coming from to be able to detect malicious activity, as they're often coming from a lot of this tooling that is placed on a network, whether it be security tooling or network device tooling as well. So I recommend looking into that. Like I said, a lot of it will be covered by CompTIA Plus, put an emphasis on SIEM, but also look into the others as well. Finally then, customer service. So we list this on here because some of the best companies to start out in are what are called managed security service companies, and they actually do security on behalf of other companies. And the reason that these are good companies to start out in is that they usually have a lower barrier of entry. Often they're lower paying, which means that they're easier to get into as a beginner. It's personally what I did 9 years ago when I started. I was working in a managed security service company. The thing here is that you are dealing with customers, which can sometimes be annoying, but they are great companies to go into to get experience, and then you can then look to move on after if that's what you want to do. But these companies are really good places to start. Ultimately, in customer service, in cybersecurity, the main thing that you're going to be doing is when you're speaking to customers is detailing complex technical issues in a more simplified way. This is one key thing that I can say when you're trying to do customer service in a kind of technical cybersecurity environment. Okay, so they're the main skills that you need to become a kind of blue team defender or cybersecurity analyst. Now, how you're actually going to build that experience. So, companies are asking for 1 to 3 years worth of experience. How I've helped people get that experience is through the actual home projects themselves. So the home projects need to be relating to each one of these areas. Setting up your own SIEM at home, for example, setting up some AI and automation tools within the SIEM, putting yourself in different instant response scenarios. Cloud attack and defense, so set up your own AWS infrastructure, try to attack it, and look at the logs that are generated in CloudTrail, for example. And if this does sound complicated, don't worry, I actually have some videos that you can get access to, which are step-by-step guides on many of these different areas and their walkthrough projects. Now, if you want to get access to that, and you also want to get access to a free career strategy call, on this call, what we'll do, you'll sit down either with myself or a cybersecurity professional. We'll build a plan for you towards your first job. We'll also show you how to use AI and these automation tools to get a cybersecurity job. You can access my resume and CV template, and you can also get access to many of these beginner courses and free cybersecurity projects. The link is in the description. Now, this will allow you to apply for one of these calls. The first 4 are only available if you access the call. So these calls do have limited availability, but don't worry if you don't get access, you'll still be directed to our free cybersecurity community, which is the Cyber Hub here, hosted on School. And you can see in the classroom area that we have these labs, and we've got the labs here. So setting up your own cloud home lab, for example, how to set up Elastic SIEM. These are free labs, walk through step-by-step guides and on a lot of the projects that we've spoken about already. So like I said, link in the description to apply for the calls. If you don't get availability for the calls, don't worry, you can still access our free cybersecurity community, but it is on that call where you will be able to access the first 4 sections and bonuses here. And like I said, it's completely for free. Link is in the description to apply. So now go and do those projects so you can actually build the experience that you need, because this is the experience that employers are looking for these days. And by getting this experience from home projects, it's going to give you things to talk about in interviews. So like I said, projects need to relate to each one of these areas so that you can build the experience in each one of these areas. And finally then, step 5, that's going to be building out your resume and actually applying consistently. So this is a resume template that has been working really well for the people that I've been working with, and it works well because it's got your previous experience on there, but it also lists out all of the projects that you've been working on. And this is the kind of thing that will help flag it up with the recruiters, because they'll be able to see, oh, this person does have experience in the areas related to the job role. So you can see here all the different projects that are in here. setting up Microsoft Sentinel, for example. And now when you go to apply for jobs that ask for Microsoft Sentinel experience, these kind of projects are going to help it flag up. Got your certifications on here, CompTIA Security Plus, for example. And this is a good tip that you can also do. I would just put this on here like this. So if you're working towards CompTIA Security Plus, just give a date of when it could be expected so you can still add it onto your resume and help it flag up with recruiters sooner rather than later. Because I think that once you start building a lot of these skills, just start applying for jobs sooner. Even if you don't get anywhere, it's still good that you're putting your CV out there so that other recruiters are going to be able to see it, and just keep applying. It takes time. I even fail job interviews now with experience. I got a friend who just landed a cybersecurity job. He's got 5 years worth of experience, but he had to do at least 50 applications to get that. So without experience like yourself, you're going to need to do even more than that. So just be consistent. It takes time, but use this type of format for your resume and CV, and it should help you stand out. And then once you do land that first job role, you can then look to specialize further into higher paying roles. Maybe you want to go in forensics, maybe you want to go into red teaming. That is able, and you're able to do that once you've landed that first job. Completely unlock this pathway for you. You're going to want to do your IT networking fundamentals through CompTIA Network Plus, cybersecurity fundamentals through CompTIA Security Plus. Pick a job role, if that is the role of a cybersecurity analyst and a blue teamer. Learn the skills related to that job role, which are listed here. Do your home projects, set up your resume and CV, be consistent with applying, and then once you've landed that first job, look to specialize further. So to conclude then, you now have a better understanding of how to get and land a cybersecurity job without a degree. Build your networking fundamentals, build your cybersecurity fundamentals, learn the skills of a particular job and ignore everything else. Do your home projects related to that job. And finally, set up your resume and CV. Be consistent with applying. Now, I want to say thank you for watching. If you want to understand how I got into cybersecurity without any experience, go and watch this video next. I want to say thank you for watching. I'll see you over there.